LiberalViewer presents.
So, welcome to the May 6th edition of LiberalViewer Sunday Live Clip Roundup. Thanks for joining me. I've picked out the weekend's dozen best, most newsworthy clips for what should be a really educational, entertaining, and informative fair use media criticism and political analysis show for you all tonight. The political comedy sources today will be last night's Saturday Night Live, including the Alec Baldwin Stormy Daniels cold open, plus some weekend update clips and some jokes from Bill Maher's monologue on Friday night's Real Time with Bill Maher. Then, of course, I'll have the regular news clips from the big five corporate outlets of ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and Fox News, the so-called corporate media here in the United States that I spend my time critiquing for my fair use media criticism show. And if you want to see the clips that I'm using, I have a link down in the video description to this clip list. Also down there, you can support me on Patreon. At one level, you get these stickers. At the next level, you get these ACLU, well, these U.S. constitutions with a Know Your Rights section and the back by the ACLU. I really appreciate all the people who support my weekly show here that's been going on for now more than 5 years. And this week's topic is going to be Trump lawyers up, which this isn't the first week, of course, that Trump has had lawyers, but this is the first time that he's brought on like an aggressive lawyer like Rudy Giuliani, and then this, what's his name, Elliot Flood? Flood, the last name's Flood. I can't remember his first name, but the impeachment lawyer from the Clinton years. So he's lawyering up, getting ready for a big fight, maybe not, maybe fighting a subpoena from Robert Mueller, maybe fighting impeachment and fighting subpoenas. So that's the big topic, and it was kind of parodied on Saturday Night Live, both the Rudy Giuliani mishaps that happened in several interviews, and then the Stormy Daniels really having a huge impact on the Trump presidency at the moment. So I want to play you the cold open from Saturday Night Live that covers those two news items, and I will discuss them with you after we watch those clips. Or that this is actually a couple parts of the cold open edited together. As usual, you can watch the entire Saturday Night Live cold open at a link I put down in the video description. This is about 2.5 minutes that I thought was relevant to the news stories I'm talking about later over here.
Hello.
Hey, Rudy, is that you?
Yes, that's right. It's me. Rudy Giuliani, Trump's lawyer and his worst nightmare.
Rudy, can we speak freely? Are you alone?
Yeah, I'm pretty much alone. This is a commercial break, right, Toots? No. Okay. Yeah, we're good to talk.
All right, let me loop in Mr. Trump. All right, is everyone on?
Yes.
All right. Guys, can we please just decide on one lie and stick to it? Because our stories are all over the place.
Guys, hold that thought. I'm getting a call from work.
Mr. President, I have lost all credibility. Did you lie to me about the Stormy Daniels affair?
Yeah, that sounds like something I would do.
Okay, good. Just as long as we're on the same page. I'm good to go. See you Monday.
Okay, I'm back.
Hey, guys, can we hurry this up? I'm supposed to do 25 more talk show appearances today, and I'm trying to make it like an advent calendar, you know, where I reveal one new crime on each show. So.
Then what do you want me to do?
Call up Stormy Daniels and fix this once and for all. Maybe keep me on the phone, too. I'll just be quiet and listen.
This is Michael Cohen. Are you alone?
Yes?
And what are you wearing?
Excuse me?
Okay, Michael, I can take it from here.
Okay, but as your attorney, I highly advise against you.
So what up, girl?
Hello, Donald.
Come on, Stormy, stop making such a big deal about this. Everyone knows it's just an act.
I work in adult films. We're not really known for our acting.
Just tell me, what do you need for this to all go away?
A resignation?
Yeah, right. Being president is like doing porn. Once you do it, it's hard to do anything else. I solved North and South Korea. Why can't I solve us?
Sorry, Donald, it's too late for that. I know you don't believe in climate change, but a storm's a-coming, baby.
I don't know, was it Jonathan Turley on Fox News Sunday? I can't remember. One of the pundits on one of the shows in a clip I didn't take, saying that maybe the porn star could bring down President Trump, where Russia collusion and that obstruction of justice might not, because the obstruction of justice in this case, trying to tell people, not to talk to investigators, or trying to hide evidence of possible campaign finance violations, and that could actually be something that brings down the president. The Stormy Daniels could bring down the president when Robert Mueller can't. That's I didn't actually buy that punditry, but that seems to be what Stormy Daniels in her appearance on Saturday Night Live was. That was her final comment, was, I guess, meant to mean that she's the one who's going to bring down the president. I don't know if anything's going to bring down this president, but she did ask for a resignation, which at least shows the intelligence to know that if you read your Constitution, I was talking about the Constitution before, you know that impeachment only takes a majority of the House of Representatives, which might happen, especially if the Democrats take the House of Representatives in November, and starting next year there might be an impeachment. But removal, if you read your Constitution, 67 of the 100 senators. It has never happened, and I don't know, is this going to be the first time? That is actually a point that Bill Maher made on his show last night in a clip I'm not taking, but I am going to show a few of the good jokes from the first couple minutes of his monologue. He made actually several other good jokes later on, and as usual, you can see the entire monologue at a free video, YouTube video, that I've put a link down in the video description for you to find, and here is the first 2 minutes that I generally found amusing, as I will discuss with you after we watch it together over here.
Welcome to this week's episode of I Don't Even Know Where to Start. That's what I'm renaming this show. Well, I'm sure you've seen the news. Trump has two new best friends, Rudy Giuliani and Kanye West. It's really, it's like he joined a new dating site, OK Stupid. So Rudy Giuliani, as you know, replaces Michael Cohen. That was his lawyer. So Rudy's in for Michael Cohen. He's traded a lawyer who carries a bat for a lawyer who turns into one. And Rudy had a pretty rough beginning. I mean, it seems like weeks ago. It was only yesterday. The lies turn over so quickly. Rudy was all over Fox News, admitted that Trump fired Comey because of the Russian investigation, admitted that Trump reimbursed Cohen for the Stormy Daniels payoff, admitted that Trump knew about the hush money to Stormy Daniels. I think the person who needs money to hush is Rudy. This is a brilliant legal strategy called confessing. So, according to Rudy, here's what we're supposed to believe, that Trump has a default arrangement with his lawyer that if any porn star anywhere in America that I banged at a golf club says she did, you don't have to check with me, just pay her. Really. So Trump sees this on TV, of course, what he does all day, sees Rudy say this on Fox and tweets, you know that hush money that I don't know anything about? Yeah, that came from my personal, completely normal, automated porn star payoff slush fund. Just like we all have. I don't know what the fuss is about.
And that's not even a joke. That if you read like the tweet that was apparently written by one of Trump's lawyers, this like 3-part tweet from earlier in the week, Donald Trump basically said that, like wealthy people and celebrities often have these pay off the porn star slush funds, and it doesn't mean that we admit any guilt and or that we admit that anything happened or the allegations are true, and it's an ND. It creates this non-disclosure agreement that she has violated and is in arbitration. And the thing is, the story just keeps changing, and especially the Rudy Giuliani story. And I'm going to have 2 really substantial Giuliani clips later, and also a 7-minute Kellyanne Conway clip before I get to the end, when I get to the newsmaker clips. And it actually almost, a 6-minute, 45-second clip and a 5.5-minute clip of Rudy Giuliani. So if you're looking for Rudy Giuliani craziness, that will be coming up later in the show. But before I get to the news summaries, I wanted to show the Saturday Night Live weekend update. The beginning was almost as good as some of the news summaries on some of the craziness from Rudy Giuliani and what's going on with Michael Cohen and the Mueller probe. So I wanted to show you that before I get to the actual news summaries, and I'll discuss it with you after we watch it together over here.
Well, the clock might be running out on Trump's presidency, so you know what that means. They're finally putting in Rudy. But instead of making a great play, this Rudy immediately tackled his own quarterback. Giuliani appeared on Fox News and straight up admitted that Trump knew about the Stormy Daniels payment, which was maybe the best confession I've seen on TV that didn't end with "created by Dick Wolf." This Stormy Daniels payment has turned out to be the loudest hush money in history. And during his Kings of Dementia comedy tour, Giuliani also said that the hush money was, quote, funneled through a law firm. Dude, funneled is not typically a word innocent people use when talking about money. No one says, yeah, my grandma funneled me $5 in my birthday card.
Rudy Giuliani is claiming that President Trump only learned a week ago that he was reimbursing Michael Cohen's payment to Stormy Daniels in $35,000 installments. I have a couple questions. Like, what kind of billionaire pays for stuff in installments? You're the President of the United States. Why are you paying for sex like it's a Nordic track? And how did y'all land on $130,000? That's such an oddly specific number. I asked Stormy to come on Update and explain it, but her agent said no, because if she's seen on camera with a black guy, her price goes down.
That was the part. Michael Avenatti, the lawyer for Stormy Daniels, said that he was speechless after Giuliani said that Trump reimbursed Michael Cohen. In fact, Avenatti was so speechless that night, he only appeared on 20 shows on 6 different networks.
The New York Times has published a list of 49 questions that Robert Mueller reportedly wants to ask President Trump. The first one is, colluder says what? Trump is calling this probe a trap, but questions are only a trap if you're lying. If you were to ask your husband, where were you last night? And he said, bitch, you trying to trap me? He's probably lying.
So I actually like those jokes better than the Bill Maher monologue jokes that I showed, although, as I said, later in the monologue, Bill Maher did some other even better jokes. I didn't choose all the best jokes. But not only did I enjoy those jokes from Weekend Update with co-head writers Michael Che and Colin Jost, although I think they're co-head writers with a few other people, but I actually thought that was a fairly good news summary of some of the news, especially like Giuliani's craziness back and forth, and in some ways it was better than what you saw on Fox News Sunday. They did like this 45-second news summary that first starts off emphasizing how Donald Trump's doing great stuff in foreign policy, which pretty much remains to be seen, but and then talking about like these 4 basic facts with very little elaboration and just a bare mention of Stormy Daniels at the end, but certainly not as many facts as you just saw from Weekend Update on This Is the Very Beginning of Fox News Sunday, the 45-second introduction from Chris Wallace this morning here.
Well, this could not be a bigger week for President Trump's foreign policy initiatives. The White House is expected to announce soon where and when he'll hold his summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. And the president faces a deadline next Saturday whether to stay in the Iran nuclear deal. But in Washington today, the spotlight is squarely on the president's legal troubles. We've now seen the 4 dozen questions special counsel Robert Mueller wants to ask Mr. Trump. Will the president agree to sit down with Mueller? A federal judge has challenged the scope of the special counsel's mandate. And when did the president know about that hush money payment to Stormy Daniels? Joining us now to discuss all this, former
They have Joe DeGeneva and Lanny Davis, who Lanny Davis is kind of the position of the Democrats, and Joe DeGeneva almost became Trump's lawyer before Rudy Giuliani did, so they had sort of a back and forth there, and they did cover some of the topics, but you can see from that news summary that they don't go into the real difficulties that the Trump administration is having dealing with so many lies, so many changes in story that was certainly not in any way in evidence in that Fox News summary. The 45 seconds, like I said, is just not as informative as the 2 minutes I showed from the first 2 minutes of Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live last night. So that's pretty sad. Sad commentary on Fox News Sunday. Now I'm going to show the longest and most detailed news summary, and this is from Chuck Todd on NBC's Meet the Press. I actually didn't take any of the newsmaker interviews, so this is the only Meet the Press clip. I thought it was actually a really good news summary compared to, I'm showing all the news summaries. ABC didn't have one because they went right to Rudy Giuliani, and I'll show that right after the news summaries, the first big Rudy Giuliani clip from George Stephanopoulos, which I guess is worth skipping a news summary. And Margaret Brennan over on CBS's Face the Nation also had a really good extensive news summary about Trump's the twists and turns of Trump's legal troubles, but this Chuck Todd one actually talks about the credibility gaps going back to the Johnson administration, which I guess is that worthwhile historical context, or is that political bias? You can let me know what you think down in the comments section. And then he goes to the, as usual, the NBC Meet the Press news summary starts with a live introduction from Chuck Todd, and then they go to the pre-recorded video package, which has very extensive coverage of all the changes of stories by Rudy Giuliani and Trump and all the troubles and the legal troubles. This is a little over 4 minutes worth watching. I will discuss with you after we watch together over here.
It was in the 1960s, during Lyndon Johnson's presidency, that the term credibility gap gained currency, the difference between what the administration told the public and what actually was true. The term seems particularly relevant again today. We had been told by his doctor that Donald Trump would be the healthiest individual ever elected. Now we're told by the doctor that Mr. Trump wrote the letter himself. We had been told by President Trump that he fired FBI Director James Comey because of the Russia investigation. Now we're told by Rudy Giuliani that Comey was fired because he refused to say publicly that Mr. Trump was not a target of the investigation. We had been told that President Trump knew nothing about the $130,000 payment made by his lawyer Michael Cohen to porn actress Stormy Daniels. Now we're told the president reimbursed Cohen through a retainer and that the president didn't know how the money was being used. Then we were told by President Trump that Giuliani will get his facts straight, but the president could not tell us what those facts actually are at that moment. Look, all presidents stretch the truth, some more than others, but the economy is strong, and the president does have a faithful base. Could it be that by the time Robert Mueller issues his findings, no matter what they are, people are too numb to the truth shading and too confused by the doubts Mr. Trump is irresponsibly sowing to care?
So Rudy knows it's a witch hunt. He started yesterday. He'll get his facts straight.
The president trying to explain away troubling statements from his new lawyer, Rudy Giuliani.
Rudy is a great guy, but he just started a day ago. Rudy had just started when he made certain statements. He just started yesterday.
Giuliani actually started 2 weeks ago. The backpedaling came after Giuliani casually confirmed Wednesday night on Fox News that the president had repaid his lawyer, Michael Cohen, the $130,000 Cohen paid porn actress Stormy Daniels in October 2016 to make her story go away.
Funneled through law firm, and the president repaid it. Oh, I didn't know he did. Yeah.
Cohen told NBC News in February, quote, "I used my own personal funds. Neither the Trump organization nor the Trump campaign reimbursed me for the payment, either directly or indirectly." But on Thursday, Giuliani told the Washington Post that Cohen was paid by Donald Trump's personal funds. Also on Thursday, the president confirmed Giuliani's shifting story, tweeting that Cohen had received a monthly retainer. But by Friday, a walk back.
When did you change your story on Stormy Daniels? We're not changing any stories. Excuse me, you take a look at what I said. You go back and take a look.
The president referring to this exchange last month on Air Force One.
Did you know about the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels?
Now, the New York Times reports that, in fact, Mr. Trump did know of the payment to Daniels several months before he denied any knowledge of it to reporters on Air Force One. On Saturday night, Giuliani was on the air again trying to clarify, but did not address that timing.
And even if it was for campaign purposes, if it was to save his family, to save embarrassment, it's not a campaign donation. And second, even if it was a campaign donation, the president reimbursed it fully with a payment of $35,000 a month that paid for that and other expenses.
Giuliani's debut on friendly media was supposed to kick off a new, more combative legal strategy from the president and his new legal team.
Let me tell you, folks, we're all fighting battles, but I love fighting these battles.
Yet by week's end, even many of the president's allies felt the pivot was not going according to plan.
What the heck? He didn't know. He didn't know. I love Rudy, but they better have an explanation for that. That's a problem.
With some even challenging the president's credibility.
You didn't know about that $130,000 payment to a porn star until you did. Now, I'm not saying you're a liar, you're president, you're busy. I'm just having a devil of a time figuring out which news is fake.
And joining me now from Los Angeles is Michael.
And, yeah, the fact that Donald Trump is losing Neil Cavuto, although he's still not calling him a liar, I just don't know which news is fake. Neil Cavuto, the news that's fake, just look down to the left and you'll see the little thing that says Fox News. That's the fake news. I think I proved that over many years before I started doing this Sunday live stream. I made over 200 videos proving Fox News is not really a news organization. So that's the fake news. But when even the fake news is starting to lose faith in their, they're basically represent Republicans, that actually shows that there might be a little crack in the Republican Party and in the conservative base. If Fox News actually starts turning against Donald Trump, that could be the kind of thing that would lead to Republicans turning against Trump, and maybe they would throw in their lot with President Mike Pence. I mean, that's the thing that could really turn the Republican Party against Trump if things get so bad that Neil Cavuto isn't just like questioning where he starts. It's like everyone can see what a big liar. I mean, Trump has lied over 3,000 times, according to the Washington Post fact checkers, I guess, but in his presidency, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's reaching his base unless it gets through people like on Fox News. And that's why it's so important that Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump get their story out and finally get one story out, a straight story. And that's why I guess Jake Tapper started CNN State of the Union with the State of Our Union is trying to get our stories straight, which you saw Kate McKinnon, who was playing Rudy Giuliani in the cold open, proving I think she can play anybody who's white. Is that what that's supposed to prove? But Kate McKinnon played Rudy Giuliani, basically saying, we got to get our stories straight with Ben Stiller. Well, here's Jake Tapper also saying we have to get our stories straight. And then he goes into Kellyanne Conway, and I'm not going to show that clip now, but that's the second to last clip, 7 minutes long, an epic battle between Jake Tapper and Kellyanne Conway, which you can see Kellyanne Conway actually watches this intro about getting their stories straight over here.
Jake Tapper in Washington, where the State of Our Union is trying to get the story straight. President Trump is in Washington, perhaps watching television as we speak, as his personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, tries to clean up a potential legal mess that he made for his client over that hush payment made to adult film actress Stormy Daniels. But Giuliani's cleanup act is already raising new questions. Giuliani telling ABC News in a new interview this morning that Michael Cohen may have paid off other women if it were, quote, necessary. The former mayor is also stressing the hush money payment had nothing to do with the campaign.
I'm not an expert on the facts yet. I'm getting there. There is no way this is a campaign finance violation of any kind, nor was it a loan. It was an expenditure, and this expenditure would have been made whether he was running for president or he wasn't running for president.
This as President Trump faces new questions about his version of events. A New York Times report says the president knew about the hush payment to Daniels months before he denied knowing about it to reporters on Air Force One in April. Here to help us clarify some of these questions is the counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, thanks so much for being here.
And when I saw that, I'm like, is Kellyanne Conway really there to help clarify? Is that ever what she does? I will show a 7-minute clip where she sort of clarifies that question as to, I mean, she doesn't say when Trump knew about the payment, but she does say when he didn't know about it, which, like I said, that is the second to last clip I'm going to show, other than, oh, Sandy's over there shifting position. I do have a bonus Sandy clip at the end where you can see Sandy do like a turnaround, lie down, and then I'll do a little close-up on Sandy's face. That'll be the actual last clip. So I guess it's the Kellyanne Conway clip that comes right after that Jake Tapper introduction is actually the third to last clip, if you count the Sandy clip for the Sandy fans out there. But before I get to the news clips and a couple Rudy Giuliani clips, Michael Avenatti response to Rudy Giuliani saying, like, are you spoofing me? Was that a real interview with Rudy Giuliani? And then the promised Kellyanne Conway and a final Adam Schiff clip talking about the Mueller investigation. But before I get to all that, I have one more news summary, and this is Margaret Brennan over on CBS's Face the Nation. Maybe one of the best compendiums of the Rudy Giuliani twists and turns of the story, both from Rudy Giuliani and Trump, but it actually goes all the way through the ABC This Week with George Stephanopoulos interview I'm going to show clips from, so I guess Face the Nation must tape sometime later, or I guess they don't use tape anymore, but they must record their broadcast sometime later than ABC's This Week, because they actually include one of the clips I'm going to show from this week, or part of that clip. But here's a really good summary from Margaret Brennan on CBS's Face the Nation, which I appreciate because Face the Nation usually doesn't do a little news summary at the beginning, but this week they did, and it's pretty good over here.
I'm Margaret Brennan. It has been a week of legal twists and turns, beginning with a shocking leak to the New York Times of the questions that special counsel Robert Mueller wants to ask President Trump. White House attorney Ty Cobb announced his departure as another, Emmett Flood, came on board. But it was Rudy Giuliani who sent shockwaves through Washington with a series of TV appearances that raised more questions than answers. In a Wednesday appearance on Sean Hannity's Fox News broadcast, Giuliani revealed that the president had reimbursed $130,000 in hush money that attorney Michael Cohen paid to Stormy Daniels at the end of the 2016 election. That payment may violate campaign finance laws.
That money was not campaign money. Sorry, I'm giving you a fact now that you don't know. It's not campaign money. No campaign finance violation. So
they funneled it through the law firm.
Funneled through a law firm, and the president repaid it.
Oh, I didn't know he did.
Yeah.
The president didn't know about this? I believe that's what
he didn't
Michael
know about
said.
the specifics of it, as far as I know. But he did know about the general arrangement that Michael would take care of things like this.
President Trump appeared to confirm Giuliani's story the next morning in a series of tweets. But in another Fox appearance, Giuliani suggested it was campaign-related.
Imagine if that came out on October 15th, 2016, in the middle of the last debate with Hillary Clinton.
The revelation also raised questions about what the president knew and when. Here's what he said a month ago on Air Force One.
Mr. President, did you know about the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels? Then why did Michael?
Friday brought more confusion.
Rudy is a great guy, but he just started a day ago. But he really has his heart into it. He's working hard. He's learning the subject matter.
Giuliani seemed to get the president's message last night.
Okay, so did you misspeak, or did people not interpret what you were saying?
I'm not an expert on the facts yet. I'm getting there. But I am an expert on the law, and particularly the campaign finance law. I've lived under it running for president. And the fact is, there is no way this is a campaign finance violation of any kind, nor was it a loan. It was an expenditure.
And this morning, in an interview on ABC, Giuliani backtracked again.
The president does acknowledge meeting Stormy Daniels, correct?
Gee, I'm not really involved in the Daniels thing, so I don't know.
We begin today with Counselor to the President, Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, thank you for joining us.
And I didn't take any Kellyanne Conway clips or Michael Avenatti clips from CBS's Face the Nation because they both appeared on multiple shows. That was another good joke from Saturday Night Live's Weekend Update about how Michael Avenatti is on all these different shows. That's, I think, a jab at him worth making, or based on actual facts or whatever. But I don't know. That was a little bit shorter than NBC's Meet the Press, their news summary. I thought that news summary was better on the Giuliani stuff, especially because it went all the way through the clip from ABC's This Morning that I'm about to show you. The ridiculous denial from Rudy Giuliani that started off like, has Trump ever met Stormy Daniels? And saying, I don't know, maybe not. And but it's even worse than that, as I'll show you in just a second. But I thought the NBC Meet the Press news summary was better in terms of the context and the whole, the credibility gap. And that was actually something Jake Tapper spent a lot of time talking to Kellyanne Conway about that I'm not going to get to. But I did want to get to a couple of the Rudy Giuliani clips, since I have Rudy Giuliani in the title of the video. This is that clip you saw briefly excerpted in the news summary from Face the Nation, where Rudy Giuliani basically starts off denying whether Trump ever met Stormy Daniels, and then tries to spin this explanation of the money so that it's not a campaign finance violation. I mean, this is so ridiculous. And at one point in here, you're going to see that George Stephanopoulos points out something he said to BuzzFeed, and Rudy Giuliani says, well, that's just a rumor. And he said, well, you're the one who said it. Yeah, but it's just a rumor. And he's talking about something he should know from talking to his own client, Donald Trump. This is, well, I'm going to show Michael Avenatti's reaction to this in a minute, or after we watch this whole thing. It's, like I said, it's 6 minutes, 45 seconds long. This is a disaster. You'll see Michael Avenatti afterwards say that he thinks it may be one of the worst legal representations on television, legal appearances by a legal representative on one of these shows like ever in history. I don't know, that might be hyperbole, but that's why I wanted to show you the 6 minutes 45 seconds that Michael Avenatti is critiquing in the next clip. Here is Rudy Giuliani. I don't know, is he senile? Is he wacky? Is he... What is going on with all this? You can let me know afterwards, or while we watch it. I will read your comments. Oh, and by the way, speaking of your comments along the way, I am getting a bunch of Super Chat contributions. I really appreciate that. So thank you to the Super Chat contributors along the way. Someone asked about the cat. It's a lot harder to get video of the cat than the dog. As you all know, that's the way dogs are. Cats are, they are just there for a second. Dogs are right there all the time. So that's the answer to the dog with the cat question. But speaking of people who are there all the time, here's Rudy Giuliani in one of his, I think this is his fourth appearance on the news in the last couple days. And this one's not any better, as I will discuss with you after we watch that clip together over here.
Let's get right to it. Our exclusive guest this week, the president's top attorney, Rudy Giuliani. Mayor Giuliani, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning, George.
The president said you're going to get the facts straight, so let's try to get some facts on the table to begin with. The president does acknowledge meeting Stormy Daniels, correct?
Gee, I'm not really involved in the Daniels thing, so I don't know. I mean, he denies that it happened. She has written a letter denying it.
Well, we do have a picture of them together. So the president...
Well, it depends on what you mean by met her, right?
Well, yeah, there's the picture right there. I just want to get that fact on the table.
Well, it looks like my friend Donald Trump before he was president, but and that looks like the woman who was on Saturday Night Live last night.
That's right, but does the...
Now, that's pretty interesting. I think she kind of... God, if I were her lawyer, I'd be very upset. Fame and fortune. Let me make money. How is she damaged? She's become rich as a result of this. The $130,000 doesn't mean anything. Boy, I wish that was my case.
So the president does deny any sexual relationship with Stormy Daniels?
He has. I have not. I'm not. As I said, I'm not involved in that. But the reality is he denies it. She denied it. then when it was opportunistic, right before the election, she came forward, and then, of course, the whole thing happened with Michael Cohen. And it's history now because it wasn't a campaign, anything.
But let me just, because you say it's history. When did the president first learn that Stormy Daniels wanted money to keep quiet about the relationship?
Don't know, and doesn't matter to me. What matters to me are two things. There are two relevant legal things, which is what my job is. Number one, it was not a campaign contribution because it would have been done anyway. This is the kind of thing that I've settled for celebrities and famous people. Every lawyer that does that kind of work has. And number two, even if it was considered a campaign contribution, it was entirely reimbursed out of personal funds, which I don't think we'll even get to because the first one's enough. So, case closed for Donald Trump. And I think for Michael Cohen, who I think got a big boost with Judge Ellis's comments the other day.
But let's show you. But the other day, you also told BuzzFeed, though, that at some point after the 2016 election, Michael Cohen had complained to some people that he hadn't been paid by Donald Trump, and that so then you said Cohen met with Trump and told him, and Giuliani said that we'll cover your expenses. They worked out this $35,000 a month retainer after that. So the president did know about this after the campaign.
Can't say that. I mean, at some point, yes, but it could have been recently. It could have been a while back. Those are the facts that we're still working on, and that, may be in a little bit of dispute. This is more rumor than it is anything else.
Well, that's what you said. You said that to BuzzFeed.
But here's well, yeah. I mean, that's one of the possibilities and one of the rumors. The reality is,
you stated it as fact.
Well, maybe I did, but right now I'm at the point where I'm learning, and I can't prove that. I can just say it's rumor. I could prove it's rumor, but I can't prove it's fact. Yeah, maybe we will.
But you've said as a matter of fact on Hannity and BuzzFeed. You talked to the Washington Post about it.
I don't know. How do you separate fact and opinion? When I state an opinion, I'll say this is my opinion, and when I state a fact, I'll say
you said the president worked out a retainer agreement with Michael Cohen after the election in order to repay him for the settlement to Stormy Daniels.
The second part of it, the last part of it, the retainer agreement was to repay expenses, which turns out to have included this one to the woman that you saw on Saturday Night Live last night, trying to make more money. And now our NDA with her seems to be irrelevant because she wants to break it up because she wants to make a lot more money than $130,000. I never thought $130,000. I know this sounds funny to people there at home. I never thought $130,000 was a real payment. It's a nuisance payment. When I settled this when it was real or a real possibility, it's a couple $1 million, not $130,000.
But
people don't go away for $130,000 of a meritorious
You did
claim.
call it a settlement payment. The president did make these payments to Michael Cohen over the course of 2017, according to you. Then why did, on April 5th, why did the president deny any knowledge of the payments when, in fact, he had made the payments?
I don't know when the president learned about it. He could have learned about it after, or not connected the whole thing at that time. The reality is, those are not facts that worry me as a lawyer. Those don't amount to anything, what is said to the press. That's political. What matters to me as a lawyer
to lie to
is...
the press?
Gee, I don't know. You know a few presidents who did that. I don't think that this president has done that. But in any event, that's not the crime. The crime is, was it a campaign contribution? Not a campaign contribution. 100%. People want to avoid that conclusion because it gets them out of trouble, and it makes the whole investigation and the tactics that were used by the prosecutors totally repugnant.
But as you know, the law says that any payment in connection with the campaign could be considered something that has to be reported. And Michael, hold on, let me just finish the question, and then you can respond. And Michael Avenatti, Stormy Daniels' lawyer, says there's a great deal of evidence, contemporaneous evidence at the time, that they did in fact discuss the campaign.
Michael Avenatti is going to say what he has to say to collect his money. So I know he's coming on later, and people can judge why the heck he let it go on Saturday Night Live if this is a serious case and not a comedy. But the reality is, here's the test, not of Michael Avenatti, not of me, but of the Campaign Finance Commission. If it could be for any other purpose, even if the purpose is campaign, any other purpose, if a man buys a suit, if a woman buys a dress, it cannot be considered a campaign contribution. Now, this was for another purpose, to protect him, to protect his family. It may have involved the campaign, doesn't matter. And it would have been done under any other circumstances if there was no campaign.
If that's the case, then why wasn't
this... And I can prove that it has been done on numerous times, not necessarily with President Trump, but with many other people that I and other lawyers have represented.
If it could have been done at any other time, this became... She gave an interview back in 2011. There was a blog post back in 2011. She was on radio shows earlier as well. Why didn't the president make the payment earlier?
I don't know. Maybe she didn't demand it earlier. You're not going to pay if there's no demand. I have no idea what the history of her representation was. I do think it's suspect that she waits until the very last minute with regard to the campaign and where you could get the maximum personal damage against the president. Back in 2011, he was a celebrity, but he wasn't running for president of the United States. Now, that adds to the situation. It doesn't create any additional motivation. The primary motivation is personal. A long history of doing that she and Avenatti and the other lawyers don't have anything to do with. And I'm very comfortable with that part of the case, George.
Mayor Giuliani,
it's the Mueller part of the case that I came in for.
And I want to get to that as well.
And I'm going to get to the Mueller clip, which actually in some ways is more disturbing about how the president may take the Fifth Amendment, and that's going to be the clip after next. The next clip is Michael Avenatti responding to what you just saw, Rudy Giuliani basically trying to find some very tiny circuitous route through campaign finance law. So what Michael Cohen did and what Donald Trump did, paying him back for paying off Stormy Daniels. So the story didn't come out in October. What was it, like October 15th, like 3 weeks before the election? Like, it's a much stronger case than against John Edwards when he was prosecuted unsuccessfully for paying off a mistress. But it's been, that kind of thing's been prosecuted before. But what might really screw things up for Donald Trump is communications between Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels, between Donald Trump and Michael Cohen, about how campaign related that payment was. And as I said at the beginning, when I was talking about that Jonathan Turley, I think it was punditry saying, you know, a porn star might bring down the president when Robert Mueller can't bring down the president, that it might actually be an obstruction of justice if they're trying to get people not to talk in a way that defrauds the United States and prevents the campaign finance authorities from having accurate information. So that's certainly something that's a possibility, but that I don't think Rudy Giuliani's careful or not really careful attempts to find some set of facts based, you know, some really circuitous, like I said, some tiny pathway through campaign finance laws. I don't think he did it. And anyway, here's Michael Avenatti responding to the Rudy Giuliani interview, and especially I think that part that you saw. And then I'm going to show, like I said, the Rudy Giuliani response on the Mueller part of the investigation that's even more disturbing in some ways because it shows where we're going as a country, I think, in terms of impeachment and the Fifth Amendment. But like I said, before I get to that, here's a almost 2-minute clip from Michael Avenatti. It starts actually with some introductory clips from George Stephanopoulos, including the Stormy Daniels, Alec Baldwin, Saturday Night Live cold open over here.
What can I solve us?
I should point out one thing I forgot to say about that Rudy Giuliani clip is, did you notice how many times he mentioned Saturday Night Live? That seemed to be like his main talking point. Like, wow, she went on Saturday Night Live last night. That means she is a gold digger, a fame seeker. You can see Michael Avenatti actually responds to that at the beginning of this clip, but then goes into his real reaction that I think is pretty well justified based on Rudy Giuliani's performance that I will talk about with you after we watch that clip together over here.
Korea, what can I solve us?
Sorry, Donald, it's too late for that. I know you don't believe in climate change, but a storm's a-coming, baby.
Come on, Stormy, stop making such a big deal about this. Everyone knows it's just an act. Just tell me, what do you need for this to all go away?
A resignation?
Stormy Daniels on Saturday Night Live last night. We're joined now by her attorney, Michael Avenatti, joins us live from Los Angeles this morning. Mr. Avenatti, thanks for joining us this morning. You heard Mayor Giuliani say he thought you made a big mistake allowing your client to go on Saturday Night Live last night. He thinks this hurts your case.
No, I think that's ridiculous. I mean, Donald Trump went on Saturday Night Live during the election. I don't think it hurt our case at all. But I just want to make sure, George, did that interview just happen? I mean, I'm not being spoofed, right?
You heard the whole thing. What's your reaction?
Well, it's an absolute unmitigated disaster for Rudy Giuliani and the president. It's a train wreck. I can't believe that that actually just happened. I mean, what we witnessed by Rudy Giuliani may be one of the worst TV appearances by any attorney on behalf of a client in modern times. He now expects the American people to believe that he doesn't really know the facts, that as to every key question you asked, he hasn't communicated with the president about it. I mean, this guy's all over the map over the last 72 hours on some very simple facts that should be very straightforward. I think it is obvious, George, to the American people that this is a cover-up, that they are making it up as they go along. They don't know what to say because they've lost track of the truth.
Well, let's try to break down some of those points right there. Number one, do you have evidence?
So, and if you want to see the whole Michael Avenatti interview, as usual, down in the video description, I put links to every one of the Big Five corporate outlet shows, including ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos. You can watch the entire episode, I think, for free eventually, and pretty much immediately. If you have cable, you can put in your cable system, and then eventually, I think they have it for free there, or most of the clips. But I have to agree with Michael Avenatti that was pretty ridiculous performance by Rudy Giuliani for all the reasons I discussed earlier. And I believe that's the part of Rudy Giuliani's interview that Michael Avenatti was referencing there. But what was somewhat more disturbing, as I mentioned earlier, was the part of Rudy Giuliani's interview where he talked about whether Donald Trump should talk to Robert Mueller. And he even justifies the president taking the Fifth Amendment. And I think that George Stephanopoulos does a good job in this clip of pointing out some of the inconsistencies, or the, why is it that it's a trap to testify to Robert Mueller or the grand jury if Donald Trump did nothing wrong and he testifies truthfully? And for some reason, you'll see Rudy Giuliani tries to say, well, it's because Mueller believes Comey and thinks that Comey is, I think he actually says Moses, but I think he's Judas. That I think he worked out that talking point beforehand, because when you'll see he's actually like looking down at notes right after that. I think the Moses Judas line was something he had prepared. So I wanted to point that out before we watch this 5.5 minute clip together that I think shows in a pretty disturbing way where our presidency is going to be going, where the constitutional crisis is going to come up, as I will discuss with you after we watch that 5.5 minute clip together over here.
Let's talk about the Mueller investigation. The president said
Please.
again on Friday that he wants to speak with Mueller, answer his questions. So you're prepared to make that happen?
Not after the way they've acted. I came into this case with the desire to do that, and they just keep convincing me not to do it. First, they leak the questions. Then they do this whole thing.
Well, let me just stop you right there, because in fact, those questions were written by Jay Sekulow after a meeting with Mueller and his team, and these were your impression, the impression of the Trump team's take on the questions. And in fact, it was a document made by the Trump team. It wasn't something leaked by Mueller.
Well, something leaked by us, I know that. I mean, look, it may not have been. First of all, I don't think Bob Mueller leaks. Let's be clear about that. I think that people I don't think his top guys leak or women. I think people below leak, and a lot of people saw these different documents. Could it have been somebody formally on our side? Could it have been somebody formally on theirs? I don't know. Main fact is, I don't care. My client's prejudiced by that. But in a way, we were helped by it. So I guess that's why they suspect us. But we were helped inadvertently. We're helped because it shows he has no case. Three main issues, right? One is, was there collusion? Come on. Nobody believes anymore there was collusion.
Several questions on that list about collusion.
Well, there were questions about it because they don't have any answers, right? They wouldn't have to ask us if they had answers, right?
You know,
Unless
Michael Caputo, I know you and the president keep on saying that, but Michael Caputo, who's worked on the campaign, just met with Mueller's team this week. He came out saying they asked a lot of questions about collusion. He came away quite concerned about Paul Manafort, Roger Stone, Rick Gates, and others.
Maybe he's less concerned now after Judge Ellis gave a pretty good indication that he might toss the case for government misconduct. that he might even have authority to conduct this investigation. He might have to go back to the Eastern District of Virginia. I would think Mr. Caputo could rest a little bit easy, although the man has been tortured. He's one of the people that, has to be looked at for some kind of compensation here. The man has been tortured. And what he's saying is they asked a lot of questions, but that doesn't mean they know anything.
Mayor, if the president's done nothing wrong, as you say again and again, and he tells the truth,
he hasn't done anything wrong, George.
I know, and if he tells the truth as you would advise him to do, what is the danger in answering Robert Mueller's
Because they're
questions?
trying to trap. You couldn't put a lawyer on the show who wants to keep his law license to tell you he should testify.
But it's only a trap if the president doesn't tell the truth.
No, it isn't. It's only prosecutable if they have some built-up, manipulated evidence to prove the president didn't tell the truth.
Well,
how often has that happened?
If you have evidence that proves he doesn't tell the truth, then the president didn't tell the truth.
No. People do things like lie. People lie. Could Comey be lying? You're damn right he could be lying, George. And we're going to walk ourselves into a trap like that?
Well, but
I couldn't.
If Mr. Comey lied to the special counsel, then he's the one who's vulnerable to perjury. If the president tells the truth, he's not.
And the special counsel has to be open to believing that. The special counsel so far seems to think that Comey is Moses, and I happen to think Comey is Judas.
But you believe the president is telling the truth. If you believe that, if you have that conviction, you're his attorney. Why don't you say, go in, talk to Robert Mueller, tell the truth?
Because I wouldn't be an attorney if I did that, George. I'd be living in some kind of unreal fantasy world that everybody tells the truth. I'm not going to accept. They don't have a case on collusion. They don't have a case on obstruction, which is why they're asking all these cockamamie questions about what do you feel, what do you think. I'm going to walk them into a prosecution for perjury like Martha Stewart did? I mean, she'd tell you they weren't telling the truth. Martha Stewart would tell you that she told the truth, and they set her up.
What happens?
I don't know that. Well, I don't want to get into that case. I don't know.
Right, but what happens if Robert Mueller subpoenas the president? Will you comply?
Well, we don't have to. He's the president of the United States. We can assert the same privileges other presidents have. President Clinton negotiated a deal in which he didn't admit the effectiveness of the subpoena.
But he did testify. But he did testify before the grand jury. Is the president willing to do that?
But only for 2.5 hours, only with an arranged format. Would we be willing to do that? I'd rather have the Hillary Clinton treatment.
I think President Clinton was before.
But I would rather have the Hillary
more
Clinton.
than 2.5 hours.
No, he was 2.5 hours in the grand jury. Approximately, maybe 3. We'll take 3. But Hillary Clinton treatment is what I'm looking for. And that is no under oath, only a Q&A, and then we get the questions in advance, and they write the report 2 weeks before.
Well, he has briefed you on the topics he wants to discuss. Are you confident the president will not take the fifth in this case?
Oh, how could I ever be confident of that? When I'm facing a situation with the president and all the other lawyers are, in which every lawyer in America thinks he'd be a fool to testify, I've got a client who wants to testify. Please don't. He said it yesterday, and Jay and I said to ourselves, "My goodness, I hope we get a chance to tell him the risks that he's taking." So he may testify. And we may actually work things out with Bob Mueller, because working with him directly is good. But if they keep undermining it, and we have situations like Judge Ellis saying that they're out of control and they're not authorized, and they refuse to give the judge their authorization. What going on with that, George? God almighty.
Final question. Do you still want Rod Rosenstein?
And like I said, you can watch the entire Rudy Giuliani interview at a link I put down in the video description to ABC's This Week. I showed you almost or over 12 minutes between the two clips I showed, and like I said before I showed that clip, I believe that shows where this might go in terms of the Mueller investigation. If you don't understand all the possible legal processes, basically right now they're trying to negotiate for Donald Trump to testify voluntarily to Robert Mueller or other investigators from the special counsel's office. If Donald Trump refuses, then Robert Mueller can get a subpoena for him to testify in front of the grand jury that's investigating the whole Russia collusion situation. And if Trump refuses, that goes through the courts. Based on the precedent of Richard Nixon, most likely, that was about tapes, not about testimony, but most likely the Supreme Court would say Trump has to testify. But even if he's forced to testify by the subpoena, he still has a right under the Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, like any other person, to say, I don't want to testify because my testimony may tend to incriminate me. That's his right as a criminal defendant, but politically it would definitely hurt him. And there are clips of Donald Trump actually saying, if you take the Fifth Amendment, it means you're probably guilty. And in the court of public opinion, unlike a criminal court where the judge tells the jurors, you're not supposed to consider the refusal of the defendant to testify, although, of course, jurors always consider that anyway. But as a former criminal defense attorney, I will tell you, but even more so in the court of public opinion. So it would be a huge problem for Donald Trump to have to take the Fifth Amendment, but it might happen after a long litigation as to whether he has to comply with the subpoena, which I personally, as an attorney, believe he would lose because of the precedent of Richard Nixon and, of course, Bill Clinton, which he was subpoenaed in a civil trial, and then he negotiated an appearance where he gave the deposition but didn't actually admit that he had to submit to the subpoena. But based on just the Nixon tape case alone, I think Donald Trump would have to submit to the subpoena. So, like I said, that may be telling us where we're going over the next several months, if that's actually what's going to happen. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But based on the evasiveness of Kellyanne Conway in this next 7-minute clip, this is about half of her interview with Jake Tapper on CNN State of the Union. It was another one of those epic battles, not quite as, not really much of a battle, on the same basic information when she talked to Margaret Brennan, which I didn't take clips from that interview, but here's 7 minutes of Jake Tapper and Kellyanne Conway battling just over what it is Donald Trump meant when he said the word no. It's almost like what the meaning of is, because you'll see her whole breaking news. Donald Trump, when he said no on Air Force One, that he didn't know about the payments to Stormy Daniels, he meant he didn't know at the time of the payments, not on, what was it, like April 5th or whatever, 2018, when he was asked the question on Air Force One, which, like I said, goes on for like a 7-minute battle, which I will discuss with you after we watch it as the second to last news clip together over here.
So the president's lawyer just told ABC News this morning that he didn't know whether President Trump had made similar payments to other women, but, quote, I would think if it was necessary, yes, Michael Cohen would have made similar payments. You were the campaign manager during that time. Do you know of any other payments like this one?
I do not. They didn't cross my desk as campaign manager. And I would also tell you that I'm happy to answer these questions, but I have limited visibility into what Mayor Giuliani is talking about because, politely, he is the president's counsel. I'm the president's counselor. I will tell you, though, in speaking with the president just yesterday, when the president said no on Air Force One, he was talking about he didn't know when the payment occurred. Mm-hmm. It's a very fast-moving exchange between him and Kathleen Lucy of the AP, I believe. And so he's saying he didn't know about it when the payment occurred. He found out about it after the fact.
All right, well, let's play this. Let's play the exchange if we can. This is in April, President Trump being asked by the AP, did you know about the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels? Let's play this exchange.
Sure. Do you know about the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels? And why, Michael? Do you know where he got the money to make that payment?
No, I don't know. So it's, did you know about the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels? No. So you're saying that he's saying he didn't know at the time.
At the time, it was.
But then the next question, or a subsequent question, do you know where he got the money to make that payment? No, I don't know. That's present tense, but he did know.
You have to look at the president's 3 tweets. Again, I'm going to relay to you what the president has told me, which is the best I can do. He didn't know it at the time that the payment occurred. Separately, if you look at his 3 tweets this week, he said a lot in those 3 tweets on Thursday morning, Jake. I'm sure you have them or people can pull them up to themselves. It's democratization of information. The president tells everybody at the same time what's on his mind. In those tweets, he went back and repeated that this was a private arrangement and there was an NDA involved and that he is saying these are false claims and that Ms. Daniels and her attorney have violated that NDA. This is the president speaking. And the president says it's a very typical course of action for famous people or people who are wealthy. And the president has said that he did this to save his family the embarrassment. I will tell you, as the campaign manager for the winning part of the campaign, I was not made aware of this whatsoever. And I would push back on this whole notion that, well, what if this had come out before the final debate? All of it was out there. The president at the rallies.
The Stormy Daniels story wasn't out there.
Well, but there were all these, what the president referred to as false accusers. They had plenty of airtime here and elsewhere. They were lining up, and he would address them at his rallies. He was doing 6, 7 different stops a day. And I will tell you, at the White House, when I show up to my job every day, this is not on my policy portfolio.
Those are different. First of all, you have more than a dozen women accusing the president of sexual assault or sexual harassment. That's different from a porn star who claims that she had a consensual affair with the president just months after the president's son was born.
Well, he's denied all of that. But the point I'm making to you is,
do you believe
talking about a campaign.
Do you believe him? Do you believe that he did not have an affair with Stormy Daniels?
I believe, yes, he's denied it. So I have no reason to believe otherwise. I don't know. He has said he hasn't. But that's got nothing to do with my job in the White House, his job in the White House, or frankly, the campaign. Now, you've had the president,
it does if
his lawyer.
he made a payment so as to affect the campaign.
He has said he hasn't.
But they had this alleged affair in 2006, and he didn't pay her until October 2016. There's a decade there that he could have paid her.
He's telling you that he didn't pay her. His attorney did. I'm telling you that his attorney had discretion, as far as I can see. His attorney had discretion over funds and made the best call that he
When did the president find out that Michael Cohen had made this payment?
That I don't know, but I know that the president has said he didn't know it when it occurred, and that is the no on Air Force One. Now, respectfully, I know that CNN has invested a lot in this story and in Ms. Daniels' attorney, Mr. Avenatti. He has appeared on your network over 65 times in less than 2 months. That's a choice that you make. But when I look at the CNN polling, Jake, I don't see this on there. I see the economy and immigration and healthcare. I see ISIS. I see historic talks in North Korea. We're on the precipice of ending decades of war between North Korea and South Korea, owing in large part to this president's leadership and him involving other leaders in that entire region. The JCPOA is coming up now, the Iran nuclear deal.
Yeah, these are all issues we've talked about and continue to talk about. And we would have liked to have, last week when the North Korea thing happened, we would have liked to have had Bolton or Pompeo on the show.
I hope they'll come here.
They refused to do the show. I do think it's important, though, whether or not the President of the United States tells the truth to the American people. And I'm sure you agree with me. The New York Times is reporting that the President knew months before the April denial that Michael Cohen had made this payment. The story broke in January. The story broke in January. Michael Cohen made this payment. Are you telling me that President Trump, by April, still hadn't gotten to the bottom of it?
Let me repeat that the no refers to no at the time the payment occurred, which I read is in October of 2016. So the whole world found out about it, I guess, in January of 2018.
But the second question is, do you know where it was present tense, do you know where the money came from? And he said, I don't know, but we're being told now by the New York Times and others, including Rudy Giuliani, that the president did know. And it's important that the president tell the truth to the American people.
I think you want to look at the president's tweets where he says through reimbursement. You've got to look at his tweets because he responds to that. And that's honestly, Jake, that's the best I can do given my limited visibility in the legal matters and my very big visibility in the policy portfolio. And honestly, the great job this president is doing on many fronts that Americans tell those opinion leaders and pollsters they care about. You can't argue with a 3.9% unemployment rate. You can't argue with the lowest unemployment rate in so long among African Americans, if ever, Hispanics,
But here's the
women.
issue, Kellyanne. This week, the White House really started to lose the support of conservatives who want to support the president, who believe in President Trump.
Numbers are up among
The Wall Street Journal editorial board, very supportive of President Trump on everything except for trade, writes, quote, Mr. Trump is compiling a record that increases the likelihood that few will believe him during a genuine crisis, say a dispute over speaking with Special Counsel Robert Mueller or a nuclear showdown with Kim Jong-un. Mr. Trump should worry that Americans will stop believing anything he says. This is directly because of him not telling the truth, not being straight with the American people about this payment. And in addition, we've had people on Fox News Channel who are generally very supportive of the president, saying to the president, to the television screen, you have to tell the truth. Stop doing this. You're eroding credibility. as the counselor to the president, aren't you concerned about this?
I'm concerned that you're not listening to the news I just broke, which is that the no refers to when the payment occurred. That's very important here. It was a fast-moving exchange. I asked the president what he meant, and he said, I didn't know about it when the payment occurred. I think you're overcomplicating that very simple point.
You think that answer was
overcomplicating that very simple point, that the no on Air Force One, she came loaded to answer the question about the no on Air Force One. She has an explanation, which is the no meant no, I didn't know at the time the payment was made, which is, of course, what no means when most of us say no. Isn't that right? Isn't that what you mean when you say no? You mean no, I mean no at the time. When that happened, I didn't know at that time, but now I do know, but that's not what my no means now. That's what that's the simple way. That's what Jake Tapper was just trying to make it more complicated. I agree with Kellyanne Conway. No. And actually, if you go on, like I said, I only showed about half of that interview. There's a part where she accuses Jake Tapper of trying to call the president a liar, or saying Trump and lying in the same sentence so that his video will go viral. I think she also refers to the Southern District of New York judge in the Michael Cohen case as T.S. Eliot instead of T.S. Ellis, which, of course, is not that big of a mistake. But then she says, great poet, T.S. Eliot, great poet, which makes me wonder, is the Trump campaign going to go out with a bang or a whimper? We can only hope for the whimper, because the bang is just what that bang might mean would be, that's a wasteland, I guess. Anyway, but speaking of T.S. Eliot, no, T.S. Ellis, the judge in the Southern District of New York, who said some critical things about the Mueller investigation. I wanted to show one last clip. This is Democrat from California, Adam Schiff, responding to questions from Jake Tapper, also coming after Kellyanne Conway, and explaining why those critical comments from this district court judge appointed by Ronald Reagan 30 years ago to this district court, as I understand, which means that he's basically has a lifetime appointment, but he's probably going to retire sometime soon without any possibility of advancement, really. So this is his one chance to be in the spotlight. I don't know. This actually, I think, more than Stormy Daniels appearing on Saturday Night Live, this district court judge in New York making these critical comments about the Mueller investigation are more about someone trying to get their 15 minutes of fame. You can let me know what you think after you... Of course, that's not what Adam Schiff says, but he does say some things about Judge T.S. Ellis talking to Jake Tapper in the final news clip before... I don't know, can you hear Sandy snoring over there? She's asleep and snoring, but I have a clip from when she first decided to finally lie down. Definitely snoring, but not snoring is Adam Schiff over in the final news clip for tonight over here.
The president's new lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, unveiling a more aggressive tack against the Russia investigation, raising questions about investigators' motivations and about whether the president will cooperate.
The president said again on Friday that he wants to speak with Mueller, answer his questions. So you're prepared to make that happen?
Not after the way they've acted. I came into this case with the desire to do that, and they just keep convincing me not to do it.
That's as President Trump and his legal team are seizing on new questions about the Mueller probe after a judge said that Mueller's team is really after one goal, taking down President Trump. Here now, Congressman Adam Schiff. He's Democrat of California, the ranking member on the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman Schiff, thanks for joining us. You just heard the president touting that criticism from a federal judge about the investigation on Friday before the NRA, saying that Robert Mueller is ultimately only interested in evidence of wrongdoing by the president himself. The president accurately quoted the judge and the CNN story about the judge. Is that judge wrong?
Well, I'm not sure that it's germane, for example, for the judge to be asking how much Bob Mueller has spent on the investigation. It's appropriate to ask about the scope of what Bob Mueller is doing, but he is well within the scope of his jurisdiction in charging Manafort and Flynn and the others. In particular, I think we have to recognize that Mueller works for the Justice Department, and any case that arises from the Russia investigation is either going to be prosecuted by him or it's going to be referred out to another attorney in the department. But it's going to be prosecuted. And in a money laundering situation, here where you have a Russian oligarch involved, and Manafort during the campaign trying to get money from this Russian oligarch and offering information on the campaign to get it, it clearly is within the scope of his responsibilities. And if there's other money laundering that he learns about at the same time that may or may not involve Russians, then the issue for Rod Rosenstein and Bob Mueller is, does it make sense? Is this part of a coherent money laundering conspiracy to try that all in one case rather than bifurcating it and have a separate prosecutor in a separate courtroom having to present much of the same evidence? So I think Mueller is well within his jurisdiction. I can understand the judge asking certain of these questions, although some of them seem to be non-germane to the legal issues involved.
Well, with all due respect, sir, what the judge is basically saying to Mueller and Mueller's team, you don't really care about Manafort and money laundering. You're only trying this case to try to get Manafort to flip on President Trump and give incriminating information about President Trump. Mueller could have referred, as you suggested, he could have referred this case to another set of legal circumstances, as he did with the Michael Cohen case in the Southern District of New York, U.S. Attorney. But the judge here is saying, you don't really care about this. You're just trying to get Trump, and for that reason, I'm wary of this case. Doesn't that concern you that a judge would think that?
Well, it does concern me if it influences the judge's review of the facts and the law. That seems to be the judge questioning the motives of the special counsel. Here, the special counsel, I'm sure in discussion and consultation with Rod Rosenstein, is deciding which of the cases that have arisen from his investigation he should try personally and which should be farmed out to others. That's how the process should work. And while, it's certainly within the judge's prerogative to ask these questions, I don't think it really bears on the legal issues. And so I think that Bob Mueller will prevail in the sense of being able to go forward with this litigation. I don't think there's really any legal question about that. But yes, it is concerning that the judge would express this opinion.
The president's lawyers have been wary of letting...
So the two main points to take out of the whole Judge T.S. Ellis kerfuffle are, first, that he hasn't ruled on the actual issue, which is whether Paul Manafort's charges will be dismissed, and most likely, basically federal charges are almost never dismissed, so the likely outcome is that despite giving these critical comments of the Mueller investigation, he's going to rule in favor of the government, because the government almost always wins these arguments. But then the second important point is, what they're really arguing about is, should Mueller do this investigation, or should the U.S. attorney or the assistant U.S. attorneys from the Southern District of New York, should they be the ones doing this prosecution? So it's not whether Paul Manafort deserves to be prosecuted, it's just whether it's supposed to be Mueller or the regular assistant U.S. attorneys in the Southern District of New York. So that's not really good news if you're Paul Manafort or Donald Trump. And like I said before I showed the clip, I think it's more about this particular Ronald Reagan appointed judge having his moment in the spotlight. But you can let me know what you think down in the comment section. I appreciate all of you who joined me for the live show. Almost, I think we broke 200 at some point here. And before I finish, for those of you who are the Sandy fans out there, Sandy's snoring away over to my left, but before I started the show, I actually got her to lie down and got you the lie down, turn around, close-up clip for the end of the show before I say goodbye over here. Lie down, Sandy. So now she's actually in a much more awkward position, asleep and snoring. But that's the final clip, and I appreciate all of you who showed up for the live show, for those of you who give me a thumbs up, those of you who give me the super chat contributions, my monthly patrons on Patreon. There's also a link down there to PayPal. I've noticed that the contribution income I get from my weekly YouTube broadcasts is a lot higher than the advertising income, even as the adpocalypse seems to be slowly ending. So I just wanted to point that out before I finish the show, and I will be back next week and for the foreseeable future, and hopefully all the way through the Trump impeachment next year. That seems to be where we are going to be going. You can disagree with me as usual and give me your comments, your thoughts down in the comment section. And until I have some reason to give you some other kind of edited, produced video, or until next Sunday when I come back with my live stream with the clips that I've spent all day watching the shows and picking out and capturing and reprocessing and all the things I have to do to bring you this show. Until next week, I guess I will be seeing all of you around the internet.